How do you break an empire that spans a million worlds? Not with a single heroic act, not even with the death of a tyrant, but with fire, with strategy, and with sacrifice. For this week's battle, we're going to do something a small bit different. All the facts are available for the battle, the names are real, the outcome is real. But it was never developed into a fully fleshed story. The Battle of Denon was huge for the turning point of the Civil War during the Legends era, but it was never fully fleshed out, as Disney purchased it and didn't continue the story. So I am going to take all the facts and finish the story that they should have made. With that said, let's get into it. In the wake of the Battle of Endor, the rebellion had become the New Republic, but victory was far from guaranteed. The Emperor was dead, but the Empire was not. It was fractured, yes, but each shard was a dagger. Worlds still suffered. War still raged. The Outer Rim bled. But there was one world, so pivotal, so strategic, that taking it would alter the course of the war. Denon, a planet that rivaled Coruscant in its reach and wealth, located at the crossroads of two of the galaxy's greatest hyperlanes, the Corellian Run and the Hydean Way. Whoever held Denon controlled traffic, trade, and the future. The battle to claim it would become one of the bloodiest space engagements of the post-Endor era. But why was this battle so costly? Why did it claim one of the New Republic's most important admirals? And what made it the true turning point in Admiral Ackbar's strategy to reclaim the core? Let's step into the archives and uncover the full story behind the Battle of Denon. The Battle of Denon didn't come out of nowhere. It was the result of calculated, years-long push by the fledgling New Republic to encircle the core worlds. A strategy designed by none other than Admiral Chel Ackbar, the Mon Calamari genius who had led the rebel fleet at Endor. After the Emperor's death, chaos fractured the Galactic Empire. Some warlords, like Admiral Uther Kermen, remained loyal to the old ways. Others carved out their own petty kingdoms. But all were determined to resist the New Republic's growing momentum. One of the most crucial operations in his campaign was led by Admiral Voon Massa, commander of the New Republic's Fourth Fleet, operating out of Botton space. Massa's fleet pushed into a contested region of the galaxy known as the Slice, the densely packed sector of the galaxy running from the Outer Rim into the heart of the core. The first major breakthrough came in 4 ABY with the capture of Drunkenwell, a major industrial world of the Corellian Run. With that foothold secured, Massa advanced in 5 ABY to the Milagro system, where he clashed with Admiral Kermen in a brutal 3-month-long campaign. It was not a decisive victory, but it bled the Empire's resources and forced Kermen to fall back. But Massa didn't stop. With momentum on his side, he pressed forward, taking the Spirana system, a critical gateway into the Inner Rim. This gave the Fourth Fleet a direct route to one of the most important targets in Ackbar's strategy, Denon. But what made Denon such a high-value target, and why did Admiral Kermen risk everything to defend it? To understand Denon's strategic value, we must look beyond the battlefield. Denon was a core ecumenopolis, a city world like Coruscant, but with one key difference. Denon sat on the intersection of the Corellian Run and the Hydean Way. These were two of the most vital hyperlanes in the galaxy, trade arteries that connected the outer rim to the core. Control of Denon meant control of supply lines, military logistics, and communications across multiple sectors. For the New Republic, it was key to projecting force deeper into the galaxy's heart. For the Empire, it was the bulwark that could not be lost. In short, Denon was the domino. Once it fell, the rest of the core would be vulnerable. Admiral Ackbar understood this. So did Voon Massa. And so did Admiral Uther Kermen. After the loss of Sparana, Kermen knew Denon was next. He pulled back his remaining forces, regrouping in the Denon system, reinforcing its orbital defences, and rallying every remaining Star Destroyer and capital ship loyal to his cause. The lines were drawn, and the bloodiest chapter of the post-Endor War was about to be written. It was 6 ABY, the 4th Fleet, hardened by the Milagro and Sparana campaigns, jumped into the Denon system under Admiral Massa's command. Immediately, they found themselves in the midst of an entrenched Imperial fleet, dug in and determined. Kermen had arranged his forces in classic 3-layered defensive shell, with Star Destroyers forming the inner perimeter, flanked by escort cruisers and TIE squadrons in high orbit patterns. Orbital defense stations and planetary ion cannons added even more teeth to the defense. Massa's initial approach was bold. Too bold, some would say. He ordered a full frontal engagement, hoping to break through Imperial lines with speed and overwhelming force. The result was a brutal meat grinder of ship-to-ship combat. New Republic frigates and Mon Calamari cruisers took heavy losses, but so did the Empire. Several Victory-class Star Destroyers were destroyed in the first wave, but the tide turned when Admiral Massa's flagship took a direct hit from an orbital cannon. The ship broke apart, and Massa was killed on the bridge. Command fell to his second-in-command, Admiral Chel Dorat. Now Dorat faced a choice: retreat or adapt. How do you win a battle after losing your commander in the opening salvo? The death of Admiral Massa should have shattered the New Republic's momentum. The fleet had been organised around his vision and leadership. Yet the man who stepped forward, Admiral Chel Dorat, had quietly prepared for this moment. A seasoned strategist, Dorat had studied Kermen's tactics at the Milagro and suspected he would employ layered, rigid formations again at Denon. Instead of matching the Empire's brute force, Dorat opted for finesse. He immediately restructured the fleet, pulling cruisers and Nebulon B escorts into a wide pincer formation that threatened to envelop the Imperial line. At the same time, he dispatched a task force of CR-90 corvettes and assault frigates to sweep around Denon's second moon, flanking the Imperial defensive line from behind. It was a high-risk maneuver. If the flanking force failed to punch through, they'd be isolated and destroyed. But Dorat was counting on one thing: Kermen's pride. Dorat's gamble paid off. Kermen, believing the frontal assault to be the Republic's last-ditch push, reinforced his centre, pulling ships from his flanks to plug the breach. This left a narrow gap just wide enough for Dorat's flanking force to exploit. Using the Denon system's gravitational eddies and low-orbit masking, the corvettes slipped in unnoticed and struck the rear of Kermen's fleet like a vibroblade through armour. The Imperial defensive shell shattered, caught between Dorat's main fleet and the rear assault. The once impenetrable formation delved into chaos. Star Destroyers tried to reposition, only to collide with retreating cruisers or find themselves ambushed by New Republic gunships. The skies over Denon became a storm of debris, fire, and dying ships. Seeing the tide turning, Admiral Dorat pressed the attack. He ordered B-Wing squadrons to target Imperial command ships, while A-Wings and Y-Wings hunted down disabled or retreating TIEs. The fleet surged forward, and by the end of the second day, Kermen's formation was in full retreat. But Kermen himself wasn't done yet. Cornered and desperate, Admiral Uther Kermen rallied his flagship, the inexorable Rat, along with 2 Imperial II-class Star Destroyers and a handful of escort vessels. Rather than flee deeper into the colonies, he turned his remaining ships around to make a final stand at Denon's outer orbital station, hoping to buy time for several Imperial supply convoys to evacuate key personnel and intelligence. It was an act of defiance, and a tactical decision laced with spite. If he couldn't hold Denon, he would at least bleed the New Republic before retreating into the shadows. The fighting around the station was vicious. Dozens of starfighter squadrons clashed in the narrow debris fields, weaving between the station's hulls and drifting wreckage of destroyed ships. Dorat responded with surgical precision, ordering the Liberty's Flame, a MC-75 starcruiser, to breach the station's defense perimeter with pinpoint ion cannon fire. Within hours, the orbital station was in flames. Kermen's inexorable Rat suffered catastrophic damage. Rather than surrender, he evacuated to a cloaked shuttle and vanished into hyperspace, his fate left ambiguous. His fleet was annihilated, and the Denon system was finally free. The Battle of Denon had been won, but the price was staggering. The New Republic 4th Fleet lost more than a third of its capital ships, and casualties across starfighter divisions were higher than in the Milagro campaign. The death of Admiral Voon Massa was a blow not only to morale, but to the public image of the Republic's military. Yet the strategic gain could not be overstated. With Denon secured, the New Republic now controlled the junction of the Corellian Run and the Hydian Way, the logistics trade choke that allowed them to dominate traffic between the Inner Rim and the core. Imperial remnants in the colonies were now isolated, and the 4th Fleet could begin supporting deep strikes toward the core worlds. Even more critically, the battle confirmed that Ackbar's grand plan to encircle the core was not just a theory, it was now a reality. The archives remember Endor, they remember Jakku, they even remember the second Death Star's fall and the torchlit parades that followed. But Denon? Denon was war without ceremony, a campaign of attrition, of sacrifice, of tactical brilliance and sheer grit. It was a battle where heroes died, commanders rose, and the fate of the core was decided. And though history may forget it, we do not. Because sometimes the most important turning points are the ones no one tells stories about. But what do you think? Was Denon the real breaking point of the former empire? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, like, subscribe, and join us next week for another deep dive into the archives. Thanks for watching.